Thanks for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. It's Saturday and time for another edition of your favorite program, 90 Minutes in Africa. We are broadcasting from Douala, economic capital of Cameroon in Central Africa. I am Boh Elvis at the microphone, and my guests are already in the studio. And in today's edition of the program, 90 Minutes in Africa, we are going to be taking a look at the Kenyan presidential election. Is it a model of Africa's democracy? I'm sure you must have been following up developments in international media. The Kenyan longtime opposition leader Raila Odinga this week rejected the results of the country's presidential election, pledging to challenge the results in court. Through this rejection, Raila Odinga joins his voice to that of 4 Electoral Commission members who disowned the outcome of the results declared by Independent Electoral Commission Chairman Chebukati Wafula. Odinga, who remains influential to the outcome of peace and security in Kenya, says he is certain that justice will prevail and called for calm following outbreaks of violence in some of his strongholds. With William Ruto Samai as president-elect and Raila Odinga on the contestation bench, many are worried that his decision to take the matter to court could lead to a repeat of the 2017 election outcome when his campaign challenged incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta's win in the Supreme Court, which went on to declare the election vote invalid, with Kenyatta winning the rerun. So that is what we are going to be taking a look at in today's edition of the program. And our guests are already with us. I use the opportunity to introduce our guests who are already with us. Dr. Akuhmbom is already with us. Dr. Akuhmbom, thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Mr. Boh, it's a pleasure. Once more again, we are talking Cameroon and Africa, and I think within the premises of these particular stakes, the Kenyan elections remain very peculiar with a lot of other issues. A lot of it within the week, people were thinking that by this time, as compared to 2017, there were a lot of bloodshed on the streets of Nairobi and many other big cities. But today we talk of pockets of resistance within the Raila Odinga stronghold. But I think very strongly that the Kenyan democratic and electoral process remains one in its kind, a baby that is being nursed and that can impact a lot of other Africans. I don't know why a lot of Kenyans do not still believe that the Independent Electoral Commission did his job and that is going to do that and has done that perfectly. Many other Africans with their eyes open were thinking that Raila Odinga at a particular age was supposed to retire, and why not bring in a more young, vibrant individual? If you imagine within what they call the BBI, many might have not known, within Kenya, Building Bridges initiative that was meant to end the injustices and historical clamor and conflict in elections in Kenya. Within this, President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the outgoing president, has made a lot. We see a lot of handshake before leaving office, and that he even endorsed the candidacy of Raila Odinga as his favorite candidate for this particular presidential election. Kenyans should equally be thinking that really Kenya remains one of those countries in which many Africans are thinking and upholding to. And after elections, there is no transparent election anywhere in the world, but there is what we call the credible elections. And we believe very strongly that the Kenyan election that just ended is one that remains more credible than any other before. We have always thinking that the hitches within elections should not be enough to divide Kenyans, and that Kenyans should live up to their motherhood, and that their motherland is capable of healing and even impacting a lot of other African countries. We thank the people of the Kenyattas, the Uhurus, and the Kiyuyus for what they have done, and that Kenya remains a model for present-day Africa.
Thank you, Dr. Akuhmbom. Of course, before I come to Ndiwum Emmanuel and Professor Akuhmbom Mac Anthony, let us try to hook up with one of our consultants, Michael Odiambo. Michael Odiambo, thanks for joining us today. Okay, it appears Michael Odiambo is not yet there, but in the course of the show, we are going to be hooking up with Michael Oduor Odiambo, who is a Kenyan international journalist, and who is going to be talking about the situation on ground in today's edition of the program. Michael Odhiambo is already there. As I said, Michael Odhiambo is senior international journalist and editor with Pan-African Channel, African News, subsidiary of Euronews Group, a former colleague. Michael Odhiambo is a senior Kenyan journalist who has been monitoring events on ground, and also he likes watching 90 Minutes in Africa. So Michael Odhiambo, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elvis Boh.
Okay, just to say that in the course of the show, the analysis that will be done by Michael Odhiambo Oduor, of course, are not in any way linked to his employer. Of course, these are going to be his personal kind of opinions and also facts from the field. Michael Oduor, what's the situation like in Kenya after the presidential elections?
Well, the situation right now, of course, is a bit calm. Even before the vote, I can say the situation was calm, but then you know that it's a matter of the poll tallying that actually brought a problem, that brought a bit of tension, especially when you know, the commissioner split. Of course, we have 7 commissioners of the Electoral Commission. The commission itself, they are made up of 7 people, but then when 4 of them decommissioned themselves, meaning they stepped aside. They didn't support the results that were given by the chairman himself. So this kind of like brought an issue in Kenya, and if you've been listening to what Raila Odinga, who is the former prime minister, he said this is a shame to the country of Kenya that the Electoral Commission is splitting. But on the other side, William Ruto, who has been declared winner, actually supports it. He said that this is democracy and that he won squarely and fairly. But then the situation is a bit calm. But right now, Kenyans are waiting for the Supreme Court ruling. And you know, the Supreme Court ruling will sit as from Tuesday next week. Actually, the Raila Odinga side had 7 days from Monday to file their petition. And I think they might file either tomorrow or Monday. But I think Monday they're gonna file their petition. But then from Tuesday in the afternoon, of course, the Supreme Court will have time to now start to release into this. And but the situation is a bit calm, and people are waiting for the Supreme Court ruling, and that's what's happening on the ground. Elvis.
Okay, thank you, Mike. But before I get back to the studio to introduce, of course, our other panelists, because there are already 3 other panelists in the studio that are going to be commenting and analyzing the situation in Kenya alongside with you. I would like to know from you, to what degree have Kenyans accepted William Ruto as their president-elect?
Well, if you want to measure in terms of degree, one thing, let's make this clear. We had over 22 million registered voters. And out of these 22 million voters, only 14 million voted. Therefore, we have 8 million voters who did vote, who are actually the majority, actually, if you take the tally in terms of who supported who. So we had, according to IBC, we have almost 7 million who voted for Ruto, and then we have almost 6.9 who voted for Raila. So kind of like, if you look at this in terms of numbers, we can't say where Kenya is because we have the silent majority. Of course, if you have to go now political into this, you have to say that Raila supporters feel as if they've been denied the opportunity. They've been denied their democratic right. They've been denied what they believe is right to them in terms of declaring Raila president, and therefore they are claiming there was some radio. But at the same time, on Ruto's side, the supporters also believe freedom has come, meaning the hustler. You know, Ruto himself calls himself hustler. Therefore, a hustler can become a president. A chicken seller can become president. Therefore, he won equally and squarely. Therefore, you can't gauge it in terms of where we have more support and where we don't have more support. But we have the silent majority who didn't vote and who are 8 million voters.
Thank you so much, Michael Oduor Odhiambo, who is a senior international news editor on African affairs, Kenyan journalist. Professor Akuhmbom Mac, you've listened to Michael Oduor Odhiambo, who is, of course, laying the foundation for our show. You'll be monitoring the presidential election so far in Kenya. What are some of your observations?
You see, we have a problem as Africans that we get at times to believe in the unworkables, where we believe that democracy is what is going to make Africa excel, trying to copy that which we think is working somewhere when it's practically not working there. I want to believe that what happened in Kenya seems to be more, should I say, like Dr. Ako used the statement, it is, let me use the word, trustworthy rather than really transparent. When we are looking at transparency, there's a problem. Just imagine about 24 million people went to, let's say 22 million people registering to vote. That was a huge number. Then, on the day of the vote, 14 million go to vote. Then the two main candidates take close to 13 million of those votes. Dividing it at a total of 7 million and 6.9 million something, then the rest goes to the rest of the candidates. Where is the rest of the 8 million that do not vote? The question now is, should that particular election be considered an election of the majority? Because sincerely, the majority did not vote. And when you go looking at the situation that happened in Kenya, before the elections were actually declared, before the winner was declared, you discover the chair lady, the vice chair lady, or say the deputy chair lady of the Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission came out and refused that she is not part of that particular result that is about to be read. And four other commissioners refused the results. It means there is something somewhere. They said they are interested in the process. And they said the process was filled with a lot of darkness, implying that there is a fishy game somewhere. That also goes to make us understand that democracy as a whole is not a pattern that Africans should consider as a means to choose who will lead them. Because if we expect freedom and we think that democracy is the path to freedom, democracy is truly not a path to freedom. I am not saying that what happened in Kenya, I will tell you, they are kind of more exemplary than we will compare what is happening in Cameroon here. You see, when they talk of an independent electoral commission, look at what happened. Do you know the process of choosing the Kenyan independent commission? This is the process. To choose those guys, there are 8 of them. There is a choice that the president makes. He sends it to the National Assembly. The National Assembly makes a selection of those whom they think that can be appointed. Then they send it back to the president, and the president now makes the appointments. It is not something that is chosen. Oh, I did not put it clearly. This president did not choose these individuals himself. He created a body that selected the persons that they feel that can be used. And from among, it is the National Assembly now that selects those who should be appointed. And when they are selected, the president now declares these are the persons that make this body. So it is not the job of the president to choose and sign decrees. This goes through the parliament. That body becomes independent. Okay. But at the same time, there is a lot that needs to be put in place in order for a body like that to truly be transparent. Because as long as that particular National Assembly is made up of a particular party more, they have the upper hand. If the majority in that particular assembly is of a particular party, they have an upper hand. The same goes with the president making the choice, confirming the choices. That is no transparency at the end of the day. And those are the mechanisms that have been put to deceive the masses to think that democracy is that favorable system that can permit us to get freedom and to be able to live based on the desires of our inner person. But that is not true.
Thank you, Professor Mac. I'll be coming back to you. Time for me now to get to Ndiwum Emmanuel, the co-founder and Secretary General of the New Era Youth for Africa, to comment about the choice of members of the Independent Electoral Commission. In normal circumstances, if an electoral commission is independent, we don't know where. I don't see the necessity of always tagging the word independent there. I don't know why. Why is it that most African nations like to highlight the word independent? If you call it an electoral commission, does that make any difference?
Good afternoon to those watching us from Kenya, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and the world at large. Remember, this is a program that is consumed everywhere in the world. It's not limited only to Africa, despite the fact that the program is streaming from Africa. So I'm officially greeting the new president of Kenya in the name of NEA. And to come back to your question, I think that question you are asking of why must they always say independent commission? Or why, what if they should put it electoral commission? There are a lot of things that the African continent as a whole needs to sit up. And it includes the very vital area of election, which has to do with choosing the leaders. Somebody somewhere must have given the name independent commission, and that somebody somewhere must have not been also independent to give that name independent commission, which means that a group of people have an agenda before coming up with such a thing. Because each time you hear of an independent commission in Africa, let me put it like that, each time you hear of an independent commission in Africa as a whole, it always ends up that somebody somewhere was drawing the rope or was holding the rope of that commission and then dictating on what they should do. That said, I want to think that when I'll be coming back the second time, we'll be getting into the topic proper. But before then, little drops of water forms an ocean. I say this because it is very rare in Africa to get the figures that Kenya has had as number of people who have gone in actually as active electorates. It's very rare in Africa to see an election in a country, especially French Africa, that whether the commission is independent or not, let's acknowledge first the fact that the elections in that country has been managed by the internal institutions. We have not seen any transparency international in that country. We have not seen France, US, or other countries officially come to assist them in evaluating and telling them when the election results be proclaimed. So at that point, I think we can give a pat on the back of the Kenyans and the institutions of that country.
Thank you so much. Doctor, before I get to Dr. Akojanako, let us get to our machines. Close to 2 hours ago, some men of God in Kenya came together to pray for peace in the nation as they are scared probably that the situation might degenerate to something else. And so they are praying for peace in Kenya so that we should not have a situation of post-electoral violence in that country. Let's get to our machines and watch an excerpt of the prayers that were made by the men of God, both of the Christianity and the Muslims. There were Christians and Muslims who came together for this prayer. Let's watch it and then we'll come back to Dr. Akojanako.
This one is about, we are asking the Holy Spirit to guide us to guide our nation, to guide those who are near and dear to us. There's an English and Swahili. We are doing the English version of the Synod prayer. Our country has been praying, especially the Catholic Church, and all of us have been praying. One prayer that embraces our aspirations and our concerns is a guidance, and especially today we are talking about guiding, of course, the people's consciences, that they do the right things, they act according to God's dictates, and we pray together this Synod prayer. Actually, for us Catholics, we know it embraces everybody and every person. And then after that, I'll ask the Muslim brother here to finalize with a Muslim prayer. We can stand. We stand kindly, so that prayer sounds, we are saying we stand. Okay. Okay. We stand before you, Holy Spirit, as we gather together in your name, with you alone to guide us. Make yourself at home with our hearts. Teach us the way we must go and how we are to pursue it. We are weak and sinful. Do not let us promote disorder. Do not ignorance lead us down the wrong path, nor partially influence our actions. Let us find you and our unity, so that we may journey together to eternal life and not to stray from the way of truth, what is right. All this we ask of you, who are at work in every place and time, in the communion of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy, and forever. Amen.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Oh Lord, help us to overcome mischief of those who made our plans to cause violence against others, practice hate and spread disorder. We seek your protection, Ya Rabbi. Oh Allah, make Kenya safe and reassuring, and protect us from mischief, Ya Rabbi. Oh Allah, you are peace, and from peace comes you. Blessed are you, O honor of majesty and honor. Allahumma anda salam, wa minka salam, tabarak taman dal jalad wal ikram, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, thank you so much, Ewane, for playing that except Dr. Akuhmbom, I want you to comment on that. Of course, based on the prayers that are going up to the heavens, from every indication, the judges that will be handling the petitions have the obligation to focus on the law, to ensure that the law, the law and nothing but the law is taken into consideration during the ruling.
One of the things Africans still litter around is thinking that manners will one day fall from heaven. The institutions put in place are by man, and those institutions are exercised by men. One of the things we need again in Africa is to believe in what we are doing. And Mr. Raila Odinga, if he remembers very well, in fact, first of all, I will praise his effort to be part and parcel of that particular prayer. If he really accepts and agrees with that prayer, what Mr. Raila Odinga should do and help Kenyans is to accept the electoral outcome. If he is ready with the prayer, I sincerely think that Mr. Raila has a major role here. He should think of post-electoral violence in Kenya and what it has cost to that country. And like we just say here, if people are not aware, when men talk, then God has spoken. God do not exercise through trees or animals. Men have voted. If you read the way in which the elections were conducted, with all the analysis given, I will tell you that some people, international observers, are saying that this particular election, the conduct of the polls had improved as compared to 2017. And which means that Kenyans have moved a step ahead from what it used to be. And many who equally think that they have lost interest in Raila. Raila is not aware that his party is at the peak of rejuvenation. He needs to bridge up that gap. The gap of a particular age and a particular era. Within, many were believing that William Ruto really performed better than Raila in many of his strongholds. And with the electoral statistics, which others are saying, is that the participation you find, what correspondent in Kenya just gave, that over 14 million people voted. And people they are telling you that statistically, out of the 47 counties, Ruto won in 20 of those counties, out of 47, with a turnout close to 75%. But Raila won in his stronghold, yes, out of 27. The turnout in those 27 was just at 64 and 65, which means at some point, even if God has to speak, accept that the other candidate too has not been chosen by the demon, and that Kenyans have chosen him. William Ruto has promised a lot of things for Kenyans. Likewise, Raila Odinga has been doing. But we are praying and hoping that if that very prayer in which he is a part to has touched his mind, there is no need to go in for a petition. We accept the results. I don't know why Africans, until Donald Trump arrived at the White House, I have never known that Americans can contest elections, because I have seen in the areas and the times of John McCain, I've seen when Barack Obama came to power, when Al Gore contested W. Bush, that before results are even released, these guys always call and say, congratulations, you are the next president of the United States. And this has calmed down a lot of tension. We have seen the consequences of just contesting the elections in the US. That has caused the world over to equally think that democracy is not meritocracy, which means that people might have voted somewhere, but then the merits is what we have in the box. Yes. And so Raila Odinga needs some time to sit back and maybe to rethink his party and the leadership within which he is. And we are thinking sincerely that it is time for Kenyans to get into business. As one of the youngest, I can't say, one of the strongest democracy in Africa, lessons should be learned from Kenya, not destructive intelligence.
Thank you, Dr. Ako, John Ako. Time for us now to, we have to get to our machines and understand what is Raila Odinga really contesting. Is Raila Odinga contesting the irregularities in the election, or is he contesting the fact that Electoral Commission members resigned before the declaration of results? So let us go to our machines, and after this, of course, Michael Oduor, our senior international news editor, is going to come in with analysis from that end. But let us get to our machines and really understand what is Raila Odinga really contesting in this election.
Yesterday was a travesty and a blatant disregard of the Constitution and the laws of Kenya by Mr. Chebukati and the minority of IEBC commissioners. The law is clear on the role of the chairperson of the IEBC. The law does not vest in the chairperson the powers of a dictator to rule the IEBC unilaterally. The IEBC is structured as a democratic institution in which decisions must be taken either by consensus or by a vote of the majority. The chairperson and a tiny minority of commissioners have no legal authority to take weighty decisions and proclaim them as the rulings of the IEBC. The law on the IEBC provides that unless a unanimous decision is reached, a decision on any matter before the Commission shall be by a majority of the members present and voting. I want to repeat. Unless a unanimous decision is reached, a decision on any matter before the Commission shall be by a majority of the members present and voting. In addition, the Court of Appeal in the Maina Kiai case ruled, and I quote again, reiterate, as we conclude, that there is no doubt from the architecture of the laws we have considered that the people of Kenya did not intend to vest or concentrate such sweeping and boundless powers in one individual.
That was Raila Odinga, the Kenyan opposition leader who lost the presidential election. They're commenting. Let's get to Michael Oduor before we come to you, Professor Mark. Michael Oduor, what is the relationship between those who resigned from the Independent Electoral Commission and Raila Odinga? Are they close in any way?
Well, thank you very much, Elvis. I've been following this conversation from the panelists, and quite interesting with the lecturer, Dr. Ako, if I'm right.
Yeah. Dr. Ako, John Ako.
Yes, I don't mean to offend him, but when I listen to him, he's speaking as if he's from Mars. He's not been living on Earth. You know, he's speaking as if he's not from Africa, and he's speaking as if he's not understood some of the things that have happened here and there in Africa. Actually, the prof spoke, the first one, is talked about, both of them have talked about democracy, and my point of view is that democracy is a fallacy in Africa. If you want to believe in democracy in Africa, my friend, you are late on this. There is no democracy in Africa. But now, let me get back to your question about the relation between Raila Odinga and the 4 commissioners. Well, the 4 commissioners, there are some links here and there that actually people have claimed that the 4 commissioners are related to Raila, or Kenyatta being the fact that he's supporting Raila Odinga. So they were a bit, they had a soft, they were a bit soft towards Raila. But this is something that is open for discussion. So these commissioners were actually brought in during the time when we had Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto being in government. These are people who were brought in during that time, and the people under the parliamentary even voted for them in during the appointment. You know, they went through a process of appointment through the parliament, and then of course Uhuru Kenyatta signed the bill, and of course it came into office. But you cannot say clearly. Of course, we've been having links here and there, but it's not clear whether they support Raila. Yes, they might be supporting Raila. At the same time, you can also say that Chebukati, who is the IBC chairman, was supporting Ruto. You can also say that. So there was a point that was made about the Independent Electoral Commission. Why should we call it independent? They are not independent. Of course, it's aligned to each and every party here. It's quite clear from each and every election. So what we can't have as journalists or as individuals who are impacted by this is the proof of evidence, so that these people are actually aligned. But when you can read in between the lines, whatever they say in terms of the statement, whatever they give the statement, try to protect the other group and try to vilify the other group. So, well, from that you can say this group supports so and so, and that is open for discussion. I can't tell more about that, whether they align to another group or they don't align to another group. So therefore, on that, I cannot go deep into this. But, you know, something about Kenya's election, one thing that you must understand, we've developed lack of trust to several institutions in Kenya. It's not just the Electoral Commission, but all bodies, ministries, you go in any ministry, even companies.
Thank you, Michael Oduor Ondiambo. We've lost him there. Of course, we try to get back to the connection.
Lost like trust into this company, because one issue that affects that are. So these are some of the things that really impacts this level of mistrust from the people themselves towards the commission. So Raila, when you say that, does he have any link with these commissioners? Well, it's open for discussion. The same can be asked, is Chebukati, who is the chairman, does he have any link with Ruto? Well, it's open for discussion. So long as someone has some proof, then of course this can tell us this way or the other way around. But as I'm concerned, I'm not sure whether they have quite some links to Raila Odinga. Because if you go back to 2017, when we had an election and it was nullified, We had the three commissioners who are, of course, the three commissioners who didn't actually step aside from these results. Of course, the two of them and Chebukati himself, who is the head of the IEBC, they were actually part of the other commission. So these four were appointed later after the 2017 election. So back to you, Elvis.
Okay, thank you, Michael Oduor. Of course, we're going to come back to you. The next question that we'll have for you will be to take a look and compare and contrast the way elections are organized in French-speaking countries, the difference between the organization of elections in French-speaking countries and English-speaking countries, so that we see where the degree of fraud seems to be higher. And time for us now to go to our machines. Of course, we have listened to Raila Odinga 2 times. We don't want the accusing fingers to point at us that we are supporting Raila Odinga. Ruto, who is the president-elect, of course, made a speech after he was announced as the president-elect of Kenya. Let's listen to Ruto talk to his people, and then, of course, Professor Mark, it's your turn to talk after the excerpt of William Ruto.
Kenya Kwanza, our very big thanks and congratulations for getting us this far. This morning, we have had a meeting with members of parliament and our governors elected under the Kenya Kwanza banner. We've had very good conversation here. It was very heartwarming to see many people we met in the field dressed today differently in ties and looking very smart. We were all in all manner of attire and in capes, and it was very nice. So we are trying to fit our clothes back and see to it that we begin now the journey of governing the country. I want to, in a very, very special way, tell the people of Kenya in this first meeting of the leadership of Kenya Kwanza that every Kenyan can now go back to their phones. You don't have to use WhatsApp, you don't have to use Signal, you can go back and use your normal phone. Because blackmail, intimidation, threats have come to a stop. I want to promise the people of Kenya that our administration will have nothing to do with the blackmail we have seen, the threats we have seen, the fear that has been sold around the country, that you cannot talk to this or that person because they don't share your political views. I want to tell the people of Kenya, we are having our democratic country back. And everybody can speak to everybody about everything in every way they want. And nobody is going to victimize them. We live in a democratic country, and that is how it should be. To those of us who have been elected, from all the political parties, and especially those who have been elected, those of us who have been elected in Kenya Kwanza, I want to tell you right from here that with the leadership position that has been bestowed on us, the national leadership and the leadership at every level, that leadership that we have won bestows on us a lot of authority. But I want to tell you that with authority comes responsibility. And with responsibility comes accountability. So we must be alive, even as we celebrate that we have won, that on us is authority, yes, but a lot of responsibility has been put on our shoulders, and the people of Kenya expect of us that we must be accountable. The greater the responsibility we have, the higher the accountability bar that comes with it. And therefore, as we celebrate this moment, we also must focus on making sure that...
Thank you so much, Ewane. Of course, I see that my panelists were listening with a lot of attention the acceptance speech of William Ruto. Of course, he said something about intimidation, telling Kenyans to go back to using their phones. Probably gives the impression that there was surely intimidation during the reign of Uhuru Kenyatta. And as the deputy president of Kenya, I think he should be having first-hand information as far as that is concerned. Can he say that if there was intimidation as deputy president, he was not involved in any way?
One thing I would say is, as an individual, I can actually conclude that that is what he's saying. But if we have to analyze that statement, it implies that there is something that has been happening, which might be he had opportunity to participate in or to kind of be a first-hand observer of it. But he comes to say that in his reign, that is going to end, calling on Kenyans to go back to using their phones. The question is, were they not using phones before? What is where does the WhatsApp that they are chatting from comes from? Is it not in their phone, or is it direct calls? So those are some of the questions we might be asking, but as long as we are not Kenyans to know details about this, we can only speak from the portion of our understanding. So in relation to the previous speaker, I want to talk about what Michael mentioned.
Michael
Diambo mentioned that the democracy doesn't work in Africa. Yes, it might not. It's true. Democracy even is not a structure that should be functional in Africa, like the Western democracy that was brought. It does not work in Europe itself. It had never worked in Europe, and it is not working in the United States. It never worked in the Southern America and the Latin America, and so it will not work in Africa. But so far, Kenya has proven to us that what has been brought in, they can actually fit into it in a state. Though it is the means through which the neocolonizers are actually using to deceive the people, because you just mentioned talking about the independent commission and whatsoever. We realize that at the end of the day, it is not independent because it is connected still to power. And as long as it is connected to power, decisions are made. You see the elections that came out where Ruto was actually declared a winner. If you realize it is not the entire 8 persons that made that decision and made the declaration that Ruto was the winner. Why? The commissioner, there are 7 commissioners plus the chairperson. And 4 of these commissioners refuse the results. So it means there is a problem. There is a problem. And if Ruto has been declared winner and he has actually accepted, like he saw his acceptance speech there, you get to realize that this thing is just a game that the person that can be well used is supposed to be pushed in power. If you followed that particular stuff, you realize that this past period, British, Americans were all there in Kenya. What were they doing? Were they observers, as they claim that they were observers? What were they observing? What were they observing? And so at the end of the day, you realize that it's a manipulative game where the individual that can be well manipulated is pushed to sit in place. The person that will respond to the Western influence is a person that takes the position in power. So at the end of the day, it ends up being a game that does not work in favor of the people of Africa. And so I'll keep on saying that democracy is not what we need in Africa in order for us to establish leadership in Africa. We need a measure system to be established that can permit us to lead ourselves based on our systems, based on our culture, based on who we are as individuals. Because from what we see, we realize that across Africa, it's the same thing that is happening everywhere. It is true that in some places it is amplified, but in some places it is kind of minimized. So, but it is the same thing. They look for individuals that they can manipulate and push to sit in power.
Thank you, Professor Mark. We get now to Ndiwum Emmanuel to talk about, to comment about the fact that Uhuru Kenyatta decided to rally his support behind Raila Odinga and instead not support his deputy president, William Ruto. But at the end of the day, it is William Ruto who won. What does that say about democracy in Kenya?
Well, I want to think that, you see, we are talking about a topic of today, which is, can the Kenyan experience be a model to some African countries? I would say that if we were to look at it from the number of presidents that have ruled in Kenya, then Kenya is a model. If we were to look at it from maybe the number of the statistics of those who went to the polls, then Kenya should be a model. If we were to look at it from the point of the political atmosphere that is still, going on in that country as of now, Kenya should be a model. We have not yet seen people taken out to the streets. Now, that said, I want to congratulate Raila Odinga to have been that consistent and resistant for all these years. That's something we should yes. This is the fifth time. It always tells me that it tells me the story of Abraham Lincoln, who failed many times, 18 times, and he called it a slippery, and he ended up becoming the president. But the unfortunate thing in the case of Raila Odinga is that he is 77, and I would like that he should maintain his dignity by actually resigning from his party or sitting back to use those he has transformed, he has trained for all this while to become models. I think he will go into history like one of the greatest opposition leaders who struggled and never succeeded, but made a generation to go ahead and succeed. That is, because if he keeps forging ahead, he will end up in the histories where our new John Fundi in Cameroon has ended. So I actually think that it is time for Raila to sit back, give all the ideas he ever had that could take Kenya forward to this man called Ruto to run the country. Now, coming back to your question, I want to think that being a deputy president does not mean that people must share the same ideology. He could have been there, maybe because of the circumstances that brought him there at the time. But as time went on, Uhuru discovered that he did not share the common ideologies with William Ruto. Remember, he has been there from 2013 till date, and he has every information about that palace. He has the information that matters. It's a place that is sacred. Now, maybe, this is just my personal opinion, maybe the outgoing president needed somebody who could continue with his own agenda. And the Ruto man might have decided not to buy that ideology, and he decided to give his votes or rally his support behind Raila Odinga, which unfortunately ended up failing Raila Odinga. Now you will discover that is where I appreciate this democracy in Kenya. In quote, why do I put it in quote? It is something we have imported from somewhere that has actually little or nothing to do with the realities of Africa. If they could take something that has been imported from somewhere, struggle to polish it, go through the process without gun battles, then we give them that credit. We give them that credit. Now, we also give the Kenyan population that credit for their maturity to have mastered their terrain. They know there are petitions, but we have not yet seen riotings. We have not seen violent expressions coming out. I want to think that we are in an association, in an organization that is NEA, that one of the prime or the primary objectives is positioning the youth of Africa as the pivots at the center of administration in Africa. And when you look at a young man like Ruto, he speaks with a lot of energy. He speaks with a relaxed mind. I mean, that is where I think the difference comes in. And going by that, we think the credit should be given to him. I am not saying that because he was proclaimed as the winner, it must be so. It is true that everywhere in Africa, when election comes out, the opposition always has something to say. But I think in the case of Kenya, they have to send a good example. They have to be models by accepting the judgment and then working together with this young man who has come up. And then other African countries should also need to follow to know that it is time for the old people to become political advisors, not that they must always be at the forefront. So Raila Odinga at 77 has tried his best. He should be appreciated. He should go down to the positive books of Kenya by just accepting the verdict, staying him behind, and then rallying his support also, as the outgoing president did to him, behind Ruto. This is the time to get. In politics, if you cannot beat him, sit with him, because that's the only way out. At 77, I don't see what he stands to gain again. If he thinks he will keep opposing, there is a time to oppose Boh Elvis, and it's a time to align. He has been opposing. I think, from my personal point of view, this is his time to align.
Maybe, and that is maybe what some politicians in French-speaking countries have been doing. I mean, there was a time for them to oppose, and as time went on, they decided. Yeah,
we have seen it in Cameroon. We have seen Frundi oppose for a very long time. We have seen Frundi align, even if not openly.
Not officially, we cannot confirm officially that.
That's what I'm saying. That even if not officially, the handwriting is there on the wall. We have been reading it, and where he lives today is just one of the aspects that he has aligned. Because the person you were opposing yesterday, you are now living in his backyard. We are not saying that they were supposed to be enemies. So I am saying that maybe he used his wisdom, and those of us who are watching it might have interpreted it wrongly. But then, Raila at 77, please have a deserved rest.
Thank you, Ndiwum Emmanuel. Dr. Ako, you listened to the two men speak. You listened very keenly to Raila Odinga. What can you say is who was able to convince you as far as their speeches is concerned? Who was able to convince you?
Yeah, sincerely, when you listen to them, there is always the other part of the camp that is in vexation, and from his speech you realize that there is a complete protest. He protesting and contradicting, and then you find somebody who is accepting the leadership and thinking the way forward of the nation. And that gives us an idea of who is leading. When you look at him, you realize that one other person was prepared for the battle with a short handwriting that keep on opening upon pages to read parts of the law as far as the Electoral Commission is concerned. Raila Odinga has been running for election this almost the 5th time and can tell Cameroonians and Africans that he has not mastered the law and that he's unable to present pages where the law has been violated or broken without reading from those pages. Then you see the other side, a very young, vibrant, energetic young man who is capable of making a speech in free air. This gives an idea of who was really prepared for the office. And somewhere, I love the way he moved by telling us that after the vote, it is an authority you are be given, and that they have such wide authority. Not only authority, but that in every authority there is responsibility. If there is responsibility, he said there is accountability. You have to be accountable to Kenyans, and that Kenyans should believe and know that their country is a democratic country. I was again surprised when Michael Odhiambo said somewhere that democracy is wealth for Africa and that democracy does not count. Then I asked, why is he complaining about election? Then he should just accept anything that is given to him, because democracy is being nursed, is being nurtured, and it gets to a level of maturity, we are saying here that democracy is a continuous process. Professor Mark, equally, I know by their philosophical background, will think that democracy is not fit for Africa because they believe that they are Pan-Africanist. And I want to tell you that the education we are studying is not Pan-African education. We are studying education that was given to us by others. And this is what it is. Now, within where he is, he's telling me that there's no democracy anywhere in any part in the world. People have been elected. Yes, somewhere we might have failed in counting. I was again shocked that members of an electoral commission seceded themselves from the commission and gave a press conference before elections are announced. And you ask, somewhere, there's what we call
there are 7 members.
There are 7 members, 4. Yes, in case of a tie, we are told the chairman has an upper hand. 4 separated and issue a press conference before. Is it not what we call a secessionist movement that has been created already within an electoral commission? People need to look at it very well, because the process of selecting those who make up the independent electoral boundaries and whatsoever has that mandate of the moral rectitude of those who build. Do you have a responsibility as a mayor member to announce and hold press conference? Has the law given them that right to make press conference after official results, before official results are declared? And this is how people tamper and meander with individual lives. It is again some of those things that questioned the credibility of people we select. And we should believe, and what I said, if Raila Odinga accepted for such a commission and is running for the election, some people have even said that the declaration of electoral malpractices is a mere physical brow or verbal brow, and that Raila might not be capable of proving the statistically where elections were frauded. And it gives me a lot of pain that in a democracy which we consider, you cannot use 70 years to build a complete democracy. Remember, Africa was just fought, and now we are trying to count. People are unable to count because the Electoral Commission, they said there was a mathematical error. I asked whether the mathematical error was algebra or it was simultaneous equation. They should tell us that there was a counting problem, because this is what Africans have been having with elections. We have been unable to count 1, 2, 3, and know that we have 14 million voters and 14 people voted. We have been unable to count. When you say mathematics, the grammar becomes so hard for a common man to understand. They should tell us where the elections were. Somewhere people were told that the Electoral Commission has ditched out already scanned copies from the various counties. And statistics were already with people before the elections were declared. Yes, if they had a problem, there was a mathematical error. Every opposition in Cameroon, Africa, and the world at large must learn to protect his votes. Has Raila Odinga stand a chance of giving statistically that we 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, these are the numbers? If he has those papers with him, what we call the electoral report of each polling station or each county out of 47 or 27 that he has won, can he prove statistically? Yes. And that is why the laws are there. The Supreme Court will have to adjudicate and maybe pass a ruling. We believe too that he will not carry a crowd to mount them in front of this court. We don't need people at the courtyard when results are being read, because that's what happened in 2017. Allow the court to decide on audacity of the law rather than the pressure which we are already seeing. There is no need to mount pressure. Yes, credibility is what we are talking. Transparency is what is far-fetched. We should applaud this up to this extent. Why not? Raila would have made a lot of concessions by even getting into coalitions with those other small parties that divided the votes. But we did not see any of such intention from Raila. A lot of several times he even rebuked the same system in which he accepted, and today he's contesting election. We think, and sincerely, democracy is a baby Africa is having, if well nurtured, and that hearts and minds of Africans are sincere, believing in their institutions. If it has happened well somewhere, then Africa can even do better.
Thank you, Dr. Kojanako. Let's now move over to Michael Oduor Ondiambo to comment about, to help us understand the delay in the release of the results of this election. Of course, we've watched elections in France and the United States, and most of the time we discover that when we watch these elections, I mean, just a few hours after the polling stations close, the results of the elections are released. But unfortunately, we find a situation where maybe 24 hours or 2 days or 4 days later, we are still counting elections in Africa. So what was the situation like in Kenya, Michael Odhiambo? And in the second part of your question, I would like you to try to compare and contrast the difference between democracy as practiced in Anglo-Saxon countries. Of course, you have lived in both countries. Democracy as practiced in Anglo-Saxon countries and democracy as practiced in French-speaking countries. In Africa, of course.
Well, thank you very much, Elvis. Both the debate quite heated up with Dr. Ako almost getting out of his seat. But
Dr. Ako
it's sad that we are together in this continent, Africa. And if you ask me about democracy, I think democracy is a misplaced word in Africa. Well, you can say it's a baby, but I think we need to come up with a different word to replace the word democracy. You see, because even the leaders that we purport that they're young, like Ruto, they're young, like any other president in Africa. Yes, they have the good agenda for Africa. And when they come, they have the vigor, they have the energy, they have the will to work. But when they are in power, when they get into power, they get drunk with the power. They forget their roles, and they forget that it's democracy. Well, Dr. Ako was talking about saying that democracy is young in Africa, but he gave one very good example. One very good example that Raila should accept defeat. Well, if, for instance, let me make this example. Let's say the IBC had declared Raila president, but the methods, the way in which the election was conducted wasn't transparent, fair, and credible enough, then you see Ruto will also have the same issue, meaning he will come up and say the vote was not open and transparent. Yes, Raila has never if you look in history, if the election are done in a proper way, then of course you can say that he has to concede defeat. Therefore, in this case, we're still waiting for the Supreme Court to announce, of course, to hear the case. And of course, you ask about the delays. Why does it take us time to announce the results? Well, we have the constitution in place in Kenya, and the constitution actually says that you have 7 days after voting to declare who the president is. So the commission itself has 7 good days. So that's the law. Of course, sometimes they do it fast, sometimes they do it slowly. But you know, in Africa, there's always something that we say. The longer the results are taking time to be relayed, something fishy is happening. You all know this. Actually, these guys know when the results are always like ready. They know. Actually, immediately after voting by 5 p.m., by midnight, these people know who is leading and who is not leading. The time they're taking to announce it, of course, it's open for discussion. But something fishy is always taking place. Look, come on, man. We just had only 14 million voters. In some country like US, by 2 hours after the results, after voting ended, you have the results. But in Africa, we take time to release results, especially the Francophone countries, where you find elections were done, and sometimes it takes even 2 good weeks for apparently 2 million votes. Huh? How do you want to count? Can you do mathematics? There's no. Yes, Dr. Ako talked about the mathematics here. We need to know, is there like an algebra or logarithm that we need to follow? It's just 1 + 1 is 2 + 2 is 4. But the longer the results take time to be relayed, someone is cooking something. Someone is cooking something very fishy. So let me get back to. Maybe finish up with delays here. So we still, according to the constitution, of course, we have the 7 days, and the commission, after splitting, that can be used in the Supreme Court. And of course, the Supreme Court again has to. I think they have 14 days after Tuesday to actually give their ruling on whether the results were were actually credible or not credible. So it's upon the court, and we have to respect the institutions that are there. Like IBC, they gave their results. Personally, I respect that. Despite I have my own personal opinion, I have to respect it. And that's democracy operates. But then we have to wait for the Supreme Court, and if Raila has evidence to put that, okay, we had a reading. There's one thing that you need to understand. I've been reading here and there, especially yesterday and today, and apparently the opposition led by Nolinga, they're claiming that in some regions, yes, Ruto's staffs, he had almost like 20, 24 areas that he won in terms of counties. But if you look at the number of votes that came from those regions, actually more people voted for president than any other position. Let's say, for instance, the governor. If, let's say, we have 700,000 votes in that region, you find that almost 600 voted for president, but only apparently 400 voted for the governor. Usually, we shouldn't be having a difference of over 200 or 100,000 votes for people who voted for president alone. Whereby, when a voter goes to a polling station, he's given 6 ballots. One is for the area councillor, the MCL, and then we have the member of parliament, then we have the governor, we have senator, we have president, and then we have women representatives. So these are 6 ballot papers. Whereby, if you add the total number of people voting in that given county, the total should be having that. Yes, we have the votes, destroyed votes, like disputed votes and something like that. But if you add them, they should be having that bigger difference. Okay, so therefore that is one of the things they are trying to use maybe. And then maybe the last part, you talked about democracy in terms of in the West, in the Francophone Africa and Anglophone Africa. Well, I had the opportunity to live in Congo. I lived in Congo for some time. I think we were together there with Boh Elvis. And I realized that in the English African countries, there is some extent to which, of course, you can say that we've gone some miles ahead. We are not there yet. But of course, the French African countries are also moving towards that place. And in fact, in the French African speaking countries, we have a lot of infiltration, a lot of foreign interference, like countries, for instance, people say like France, and if you look at DRC, we have a lot of influence in those countries in terms of election, whereby external countries decide who becomes president and who does not become president. And if there is a president who goes against these Western countries, like the Europe and the US, they find a way to topple him, they find a way to move him away. But in the Anglophone country, yes, we are somewhere, we don't have this much, but yes, we still have some little bit of influence, but not too much compared to the French African speaking countries. Yes, Boh.
Okay, Mike, before I take the mic from you, I would like to know from you the level of agreement that should exist within the Electoral Commission in Kenya before. What does the law say about the level of agreement among members before the release of presidential election results by the commission in Kenya?
Well, okay, thank you for that. Actually, the law says, the law is very clear and very simple. Even the IBC, the commission, but then there's a point of correction. The commission is made up of 7 members. And the chairman, who is Wafula Chebukati, is among the 7 members. Therefore, if 4 actually distance themselves from the poll results, of course, they said they cannot verify some of these results that were read by the chairman, and therefore they term the results as the Chebukati's results. They're not IBC. And of course, the law says that you need the chairman is mandated to declare the president. He is mandated to declare the president. No any other commission is mandated to declare, only him. But at the same time, we have the electoral code, whereby the results that are being issued, at least the minimum majority must be okay with it, whereby they feel these are the clear results, these are the best results, these are the verified results. But in this case, IBC, among the 7 members, we had 4 who are not okay with this, and therefore that gives us a question of the quorum. Was there quorum? Was there majority? Did they agree with this? So this is something that, of course, you can use it in court. And this is very clear, it's like if we have a criminal case somewhere, and the majority of people who are there saying, okay, this guy did this, a few say this guy, no, he didn't do this, but he did the other way around. Therefore, the majority will have. But this is open for interpretation. But this also points to the fact that if Chebukati, who is the chairman, is mandated to declare the president, what if he declared the right candidate? And what if he had declared the wrong candidate? What if he was actually influenced? And these other 4 commissioners, what if they were also influenced? And of course, this raises the question of independence of these institutions. Every party is actually crying out about infiltration, whereby the 4 are being aligned towards Raila Odinga, and the 3, including to reflect Bukati, are being aligned towards Ruto. So it's something that is open for discussion, but we have to wait for the Supreme Court. Yes, Elvis.
Thank you, Mike. We'll be coming back to you because we have about 15 minutes to the end of the show. You've listened to Michael Odhiambo, and of course, you might want to comment on some of the issues he raised.
Yeah, that comes back to, in fact, if you had a lot of questions he asked, you realize that when it comes to the so-called independent commission, which you have 7 members and 4 of them actually distancing themselves from a result that is still to be released, it has a problem. And then you come again, why should the 3 be the ones that determine the results of the winner?
No, not the 3.
No, all of them are commissioners who actually are the ones who work in order to make sure that the chairman announces. His problem is to announce, not to count.
He did not count.
So that's the issue. So who are those who then brought the counts? And for him now to come and declare the commissioners that have been appointed.
Professor, but is it just enough to just get up and say, okay, we don't want the results of the election, without giving a reason why you are refusing the result of the election?
I think that,
without saying probably that the that is the counting was poorly done, and just say, okay, we distance ourselves from the election. Can we not sense that there is some sort of manipulation?
That's what I'm saying, that there is something wrong somewhere. The fact that they say there's a mathematical problem. We already know counting elections is 1, 2, 3, 4. So if there's a mathematical problem, it implies that the count was not well done, which implies there is a problem already. And I think 4 persons out of 7 cannot say there is a mathematical problem. Then the 3 say no, there's no mathematical problem. By democracy, those 4 were supposed to be listened to. So I think the Supreme Court is going to make that decision. But here we are just analyzing. And if you follow the whole perspective of Mike, you see that he thinks from the perspective in which I think from, where we believe that the so-called idea of democracy, which is implemented in Africa, does not help the Africans to experience and enjoy independence, because they came with their institutions through colonialism. They impose it on us. They tell us this is what you need to do in order to be legitimate. And when they go to other nations, like you mentioned, the French countries, when those people choose the person, the same persons who are influencing from behind say, no, that's not a legitimate person. The person has won, but he is not legitimate because he is not the person that can be influenced. So we have a situation where we have a neo-colonial instrument that has been used in Africa as a means for dominance, neo-colonial dominance, which we use in place, deceiving the people. You end up looking at it. I can compare it with this analogy where I'll say democracy is like a situation where a family sits on the table with plastic food and wax on the table. Then they are pretending that they are eating. As much as you eat all the wax and claim that your stomach is full, you are being killed by it. So at the end of the day, it's pretense. We can't keep on pretending with something that is not working for us, and then at the end of the day we say, "Whoa, we are democratic." If you look, this particular election that just took place, before the elections were read, already there was riot. Gunshots were already taking place. It is after Odinga came up and said, no, there should be no riots. Let there be peace until when the court, in fact, the Supreme Court is going to decide. Let's succumb. But you remember in 2017 what happened? You remember in 2013 what happened? In 2013, I think over 1,000 people were killed in Kenya. So, to an extent, there is calmness right now. Why? Because to an extent, they believe that I am the one, because I went for election, I'm the one who is supposed to be the president. Is that the way we should choose our leaders? No, there's a problem with that. And we need to be able to put that thing aside. Develop a system that works for us, that permits us to accept who stands up as our leader.
Thank you, Professor Mark.
England today...
I want you to land.
Yes, let me land here. Okay. England today is not a democratic country. You people might say it's a democratic country. It's a monarchy. They will call it a constitutional monarchy. Spain is a monarchy. And you want to go around?
It's a semi-monarchy.
It's a monarchy. Whether you use what word, it's a monarchy.
Professor Ma, we are educated.
Yes, it is a monarchy. I have used the word.
There is a monarchy in other places, but not in England and not in Spain.
A constitutional monarchy, whether you call it what,
a ceremonial monarchy, and within it, elections have been organized.
You and I
have the right.
We have a position there. Just let me talk first before you come back and talk. You must understand something. Whether I say it is monarchy, it's a monarchy. Democratic or constitutional or semi-monarchy or what, is still a monarchy. So at the end of the day, the intent is to come with things that are not working to deceive us while they maintain their own system. Here in Africa, we need our own. If we have to say, okay, we want to make to a semi-democracy, then it's okay with us. But we should not accept something blindly and institute it to deceive our people and keep them. We keep deceiving ourselves every day, maintaining a system that is destroying us, and we claim that we are democratic, we are advancing in democracy. It's a lie.
Okay, your time is up. Thank you, Ndiwum Emmanuel. So which kind of democracy now should we be proposing for Africa?
Well, that's why I would like to differ a bit with Professor Mark, because I want to think that for 60 years plus, since African countries pretended that they got their independence and have been practicing the so-called democracy, which has failed. For the same 60 years that they have been practicing it, they have not been able to come up with something that can replace that democracy. Which means that what we can do now is only to better it up, except we have something to substitute it, the failed democracy with, immediately that will work. But I have not yet seen it going to work. Why? Because as far as we still remain under the control of our colonial masters, there is no way we will get up one morning and say that we can shift that word democracy, put it aside, and then bring in something that will work. Now, let me take you to my land of birth, which is Com. I grew up getting the different funds that have rolled Com. When a fund dies in Com, they say the fund is missing. That is in the grass field generally, and now I'm taking the case of my place. I have never heard the people of Com quarrel over succession problem, because they conceived it according to the tradition of the Com people and how the Com people practice their tradition. That is where we failed in Africa, because it is imported. Now, what I can say as of now is, can we adapt? Can we try to adapt this imported democracy to the cultural values of Africa and see if it will work? Because if we were to look at it on the basis of how the white man, who is the author of this word, practices it, we will keep failing and failing, turning around in the same place. So I want to think that if the president-elect of Kenya is watching, I will tell him that he should set an example. Now you have been elected. Whether we like it or not, whether the court rules in favor of him or not, let's think that those who come to power now should try to have a forum, African Presidents Forum, where they can try to see how they can, adapt the African values to the white man's democracy, so that over time we can also come out with a pure African democracy that has to do with African values, African traditional institutions, because statistics have proven, or research has proven over time, that when you rule the people based on their cultural values, you are more successful than when you rule the people based on the values that are borrowed from somewhere. That is why, before I give you back the microphone, you asked a question to Mike a while ago, why French African countries are the way they are in terms of democracy. You will discover that they are dealing with assimilation. And this assimilation means they are just copying what is happening in French, pasting in the French African countries. That explains why in countries like Cameroon, and I keep giving credit to Kenya, 14 million people to have come out to vote means that they still have credit to their own institution. Contrary to what happens in my country, my beloved motherland, Cameroon, where you have 3 million coming out to vote, meaning that the people are already very much aware that whether you vote or not, it changes nothing. You have the right to vote, yet another person has the right to give you the number of the people who voted and to give you the verdict of who won, contrary to even what you think. So I think we should encourage Kenya in one way or the other, that whosoever finally carries the day should try to adapt this word of democracy to the existing values of the Kenyan people. I think that way it could spring the beginning of a new democracy in Africa that has to do with the African values.
Thank you so much, Ndiwum Emmanuel. Dr. Akuhmbom, I think we are doing our concluding remarks right now because, of course, you see we have 5 more minutes to end the show. Of course, based on all what you've listened right here, especially the information coming in from Mike, of course, which is his own opinion, that English-speaking countries seem to have a kind of independence when it comes to choosing their leaders compared to French-speaking countries who sometimes still have to deal with puppets that are imposed from abroad. What can we do to ensure that French-speaking former colonies of France can be able to have the opportunity to choose their leaders, as the case now with Anglo-Saxon countries in Africa?
Yeah, there is no country that lives in isolation. One of the things which I want Africans to know is that even the Americans fought for their independence. And people should know equally that even the French were accused and fought for their independence. If people have not heard of the French independent wars or the wars of liberation in France or the civil rights movement in the UK and even the United States, Africans will continue sleeping on their laurels. This is what I said, that democracy in Africa is like a baby that we need to nurse. If there is a step between and a difference between Francophone African and English Africans, Anglo-Saxon countries, the reasoning are clear. Others too were well trained and to manage their own things by themselves. Many Africans cannot sit back today and say democracy is an imported word. Within it, it came with education, which we are still free to perfect. If you look at, people should tell you that there are certain kingdoms equally still existing in Africa, and no country on earth has forced Africa to maintain a particular part. So if we look at the kingdom of Morocco, and we look at the kingdom in Swaziland and many others around, you imagine that there equally some officials are still elected. Within the African system is that an average African, 70 years after independence, still remains egoistic, myopic, and self-centered. And we think that with time, education, we need to change education to reflect the African manner, because there is no studying of the traditional stool on how leadership is made. But we should equally know that there are a lot of studies on how presidential elections are organized throughout the world. And so that is where we are. It is the same reason that as we keep on moving forward, there is a need for Africa to adapt to its own realities, but then not discarding what we have learned. There is a need for us to build our blocks on the foundation that we had received. Every child going to education needs a base, and so Africans have received that. Kenyans should learn equally that 2017 is not 2022, and that we should equally salute the effort that that country is doing and what people have done. Within it leaves a lot of worries. In fact, Michael Odiambo made himself again, put himself in a complete hullabaloo. I mean, he was completely confused at the end of his analysis. That what even guarantees us that the 3 people are right, or the 4 other members of the Electoral Commissions were right, or the president of the commission is right. This is why we accept the results and then take the future ahead, because nobody can continue contesting everlasting. We should implement ways. We cannot equally somewhere be claiming that the elections in Africa should reflect those of the West. They have good internet connection, good road network, and even delivery of materials. You will realize that some countries and some villages within Africa only see government officials on the eve of elections. Others have never seen them because of the road network. And others, like in some places, we expect drones to drop electoral materials, then collect results in that same manner. So there are a lot of worries in Africa, which for now, that's why we call it baby democracy, which need to be nursed and cultured, and that lessons are needed. We had just learned from the Kenyan example, and that such electoral commission should equally be capable of getting men of moral consciousness. If there is any protest on election, I believe there should even be a law forbidding members of the Electoral Commission talking or contradicting results before the results are released. We need a contradictory view after elections are released officially, not before elections are released. And this equally should give ground to whosoever opposition is coming, that when we vote, we protect our votes. There is a right of all independent candidates at the level of each electoral voting ballot to present its own official results that ties with the Electoral Commission sheet. So there is a need in every level to fashion the democracy and the type of election we want. We are free to build the Africa that we admire, that Africa that will take us to the next century.
Thank you, Dr. Kojanako. Michael Oduor Ondiambo, of course, I want you to give your own concluding remarks before we draw the curtains for today's show.
Well, Eric said that it's quite good, and I really appreciate giving me this opportunity to talk. But all in all, with all our conclusion, I can say that let's wait for the rule of law to take its course. Let's wait, let's be patient. I'll actually even urge my Kenyan fellows to be truthful, as Raila Odinga said, as Ruth has said. They preach peace, and we hope that things will go on well. And Africa still has a long way to go in terms of democracy. And of course, we can't just deny the fact that we are not moving somewhere. We are moving somewhere, and we need time. But despite that, we cannot say that we cannot actually support injustices here and there. Way to democracy is whereby we have unity, we have justice, and we have that democracy itself. So we hope things will work out for Kenya. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Odiabo. Really appreciate you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be part of the show. Professor Mark, thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure, and we believe that as we keep on, Africa is going somewhere, but we should be the ones to make the Africa we want to see. It is our duty to work to make the Africa we want. Nobody else can do it for us.
Ndiwum Emmanuel, New Era Youth for Africa, thank you so much for your input in the show.
Yeah, thank you. It's always a pleasure to think that we can contribute to work and send our mother continent one step ahead. It's our duty, and we shall do so till when things change.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It is not over until it is over. After the release of the results by the Independent Electoral Commission, Raila Odinga, who is the opposition leader contesting the presidential election, of course, has at least 7 days from the date of the release of the presidential election to file a case. And of course, the Supreme Court will have about 14 days to render a verdict as far as this presidential election is concerned. And of course, we are going to be back here some other time to analyze who has won and who has not won, and the impact it has for Africa and democracy in Kenya, to be specific. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we draw the curtains for today's edition of 90 Minutes in Africa, produced by Eli Nolinga Ewane. We had as guest Professor Akuhmbom Mac Anthony, who is, of course, professor. We had Dr. Kojanako, our legal expert. We had Ndiwum Emmanuel Samori, who is the Secretary General, co-founder of the New Era Youth for Africa, and we're joined by Michael Oduor Ondiambo, Odiambo, who is a senior international journalist and editor with African News, a subsidiary of Euronews Group. We want to thank him for his time, taking time out of his very busy schedule to give us the input he has given. I want to say that we deeply appreciate. The program was coordinated by Kum Leonard and supervised by Brian Tambe. I am Boh Elvis, thanking you for watching. See you next week for another edition of the program. Bye-bye.